Listen now, we the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard. We're back after a week's break. Not a lot of things going on in the world of sports other than a lot of talking heads, a lot of empty discussion, and a lot of weird news. But we're getting closer to picking up the NFL season once again, and hopefully we'll be able to do that as regular as possible. We have JJ back on the show. So JJ, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Doing fine. That's wonderful. It's been a while since you've been on here, but we've got you back, and we're going to get some of your opinions. Of course, Smokey, you're in here too. How's your day been?
Oh, good, man. Good. Better than Jamal Adams at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I was actually kind of expecting you were gonna do that. I wasn't sure if it was gonna be him or Jets fans, because you could have gone Jets fans.
Yeah, I thought about that actually.
Okay, so actually, you know what? We had another topic planned, and we'll get to that. But let's talk about the situation for 5 minutes. Why not? Because it feels like it's the biggest news in football at the moment. So Jamal Adams, in the center of the current football drama, was captured on video by a fan when he was driving by in his car, and the fan screamed at him, "Yo, are you going to the Cowboys?" And Jamal Adams replied, "Man, I'm trying." And of course he's under contract with the New York Jets still, and he's been quite vocal about wanting to be traded to a good team, or the Texans for some reason. Have you seen the list that he said? Like, he had like 7 teams.
Oh no, I haven't seen the entire list. Who's on it?
He had a list like 7 teams that he would want to go to. It was like the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Chiefs, and then like a couple other good teams, and then like the Texans. Like Houston was on there.
So
I guess because he is
you're
from
saying Texans are not a good team.
No, the Texans are not a good team. I guess he wants to be in his home state, but most prominently, of course, he would want to be with the Cowboys. Because that's kind of where he grew up as a fan of that team. So he is demanding a trade because he feels like the Jets aren't paying him enough, and they're bad, or he wants to succeed or whatever. So we'll see what comes of that situation. Exactly.
Well, he's saying he wants to be the highest.
On the list too.
He wants to be the highest paid player on the team. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. And that's that's tough to do.
Yeah, CJ
you got Le'Veon
Mosley
Bell on that team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sam Darnold will be paid in a year or two.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's probably going to be leaving. I don't see the Jets giving him that kind of money.
I doubt it, especially with him being so vocal about it and being like this kind of a disturbance. I don't like these types of characters in the locker room. Like, he's the kind of guy that you actually, like, when he does this type of stuff, that's actually a sign you want to get rid of him, right? If I'm the Jets GM and I'm thinking, yeah, you know what, I probably should trade him. He's doing all this stuff. He's talking bad about our team. He's publicly saying, I want to get traded. We should probably get him out of here. That's what they did with Earl Thomas in Seattle, who's a similar kind of character that I never had an appreciation for those kinds of people. Same with Antonio Brown, and Jamal Adams seems to be in a similar spot there. So I say you want to get rid of him. And yes, he's a good player, but you just don't want that on your team. Built that team around Sam Darnold. You know what you got in him. Still a lot of work to do. Jets are still very much rebuilding, and they're going more slowly than they thought they were.
Yeah.
But it seems like they should probably kick him to the curb there. If they're good value for him this offseason, that's definitely the right move to make. Now, the question is, where does he go, right? A lot of teams probably won't be able to pay him. Like Kansas City, for example. They're gonna put everything they have in Patrick Mahomes. They're not gonna be able to pay him right now. Baltimore maybe. Dallas will be tough whenever Dak Prescott signs his franchise tag. Which may have happened at the point that this podcast comes out, by the way, because it's expected to happen, or expected to be happening on Monday, which is already passed at this point. So, well, I guess we'll see about that situation. But the reason that we are here and what we want to talk about is we're going to give some outlooks, some predictions for the 2020 NFL season. Specifically, we want to predict awards. That is, who will be the MVP, who will be the offensive defensive player of the year, who will be the offensive defensive rookie of the year, and who will be the coach of the year. Those are, I guess, kind of the most promising ones. Of course, there's also comeback player, those sorts of things. Walter Payton, man of the year, but we can't really predict those as much, but we can try, of course. But this is what we're doing today because we're getting somewhat close. We might have an idea of who will perform. And this will also tie into what we talked about the last few times with how we expect teams to do. And today is who do we expect them to contribute for their success. So let's start off maybe with let's just start off with the MVP, right? Let's start right from the top. So who of you wants to start? Either one's fine.
I mean, I generally don't know.
Yeah, JJ.
Oh, dude.
Go ahead.
When it comes to awards, I'm like the worst person to ask.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
The MVP, the most valuable player. I just thought of something else, but that's not the one. I mean, from what I know, those generally tend to be quarterbacks, and they generally tend to be ones that are somewhat valuable as players, if you will. Who's doing good right now? How was that guy in Kansas City?
That guy! He's really good, I've heard. Yeah, he's pretty good.
It would be even funnier if I knew right offhand what their backup quarterback is, and I would just throw that name out. Like, the guy in Kansas City, like that.
Yeah, Jordan Tomu, maybe.
Oh, right.
They have a bunch of...
No, was it Tomu that went?
I mean, they have like 4 quarterbacks on their roster right now.
Yeah.
No one else.
I know that there was at least 2 XFL quarterbacks that went to the NFL.
I think so. Yeah, he was there last year, and other people too.
No, of course I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes. Like all joking aside, I mean, there's precedent for him to be the MVP, and from what I hear, he plays pretty good football. From what I've seen, that seems to be true.
People say he's pretty good.
And I mean, it's granted, it's the easy pick, right? Like it's like if you say, oh yeah, this guy, we know he's good.
He's just picking him.
We know he's gonna play. He's gonna do well. He's probably gonna go to the Super Bowl. Like, chances are
he's gonna do good.
Yeah.
So okay.
Well, you are correct, and Vegas has Patrick Mahomes as the number 1 odds right now.
Something right.
You know what the popular pick in the media is right now? Appears to be Russell Wilson. For the life of me, I can't figure that one out. But that does seem to be the most popular analyst pick at the moment. But who I am going with, I actually thought about maybe a Kyler Murray, maybe a Carson Wentz, but I am going to back up my earlier predictions and go with Josh Allen because I expect the Bills to be dominant this season, and I do expect Josh Allen to have his Cam Newton season. So if he has a Cam Newton season, Cam Newton won the MVP, and he should repeat that with the Bills this season.
But Cam Newton went 15-1.
He did. Oh yeah. I don't think he's going 15-1, but I think they're going to have one of the best records. What did I predict them for? 12-4. One of the best records in the NFL. And yeah, if he can carry that team to that great of a record and deep into the playoffs, by the time the awards session rolls around, I think he'll be a shoo-in if he's as good as I expect him to be.
Okay. So the way that you filter by MVPs, like just your selection, is first of all quarterbacks only. It's just the way it is, and then either great quarterback on a good team or good quarterback on a great team. At least those parameters need to be met, and once you do that, you're left with about usually between 5 to 8 names realistically. So we have Mahomes, we have Wilson, Wentz, Rodgers, and then you have some bubble names like Ryan, Garoppolo, Brady, Breeze, sort of guys, and Josh Allen would also go into that. So it's either it has to be a good team at least, a good great quarterback. If Seattle, I will say this, if Seattle wins 12 games, then Russell Wilson might be the MVP because he will be the only reason that they win anything. And he's assuming the Aaron Rodgers role slowly in Seattle. And that's the reason that Aaron Rodgers is so highly regarded. Hey, for one, yes, Patrick Mahomes is the easy pick. If I had to bet anything, of course it's Patrick Mahomes. The only thing realistically that should stop Patrick Mahomes from being able to win another MVP and going back to a Super Bowl is injury. That's the only thing we've seen him. That's the only thing we've ever seen stop him from being the best player on a weekly basis in the NFL. Has been injury over the 2 years, over his entirety of his career so far. So given that we don't expect that, he should be the pick. Carson Wentz, I guess you could say the Eagles had a bit of a down year in general. He was literally throwing to like fans last year, so we can't really expect him to have an MVP caliber season. He had one. when they won the Super Bowl and they actually got hurt, which was kind of unfortunate. But he showed off that he had an MVP caliber talent in him. Josh Allen, I don't think that Josh Allen at his best is quite on the level as Cam Newton at its best. I think Cam Newton has had a little bit more firepower. I think he's just a little more athletic, a little faster, just a little higher ceiling than Josh Allen. That being said, I think Josh Allen will have just as good of a career, if not better, than Cam Newton, because I believe he's going to be the more long-term solution at a more, or I should say, a less volatile team, more solid team in Buffalo, which is starting to look really, really good. I think he has an outside chance. I want to bring up one name, though, and I've heard this guy talked about a little bit. I'm not sure if you can kind of guess who I'm going for, but heard him talked about a lot, and a lot of people wouldn't expect it, but I'm actually looking at Drew Lock also. If I'm expecting someone to really have that kind of a year, like that breakout year, and we will get into breakout candidates in future episodes. Drew Lock should not be counted out. I think he should be like a top 10 favorite at the moment, because the Broncos have improved leaps and bounds from what they were last year, so he should be on that list. But other than that, the usual suspects will be it, and I think Patrick Mahomes, along with Rodgers, Breeze, and maybe Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson too, should be ahead on that list. So if you're a betting man, Mahomes is your guy. But in terms of the odds, I guess the one thing that we can pretty much for sure say is it will be a quarterback, because it seems like that is a given now.
Yeah, I want to say about if you're a betting man, I don't know what are the odds actually. That would be relevant.
I'm not sure. Do you have
Josh,
numbers?
I do. Hold on. Josh Allen is actually at plus 5,000 right now.
Okay. You might want to bet on him if you believe it so much.
Exactly.
I'm assuming we have like Mahomes, maybe Wilson, Brady, Rodgers, and Lamar Jackson.
Mahomes, Jackson, Wilson. These guys are all 600 and under. Then you're followed up with Dak Prescott, Drew Brees, Deshaun Watson. And they're all in the early teens. Carson Wentz, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is up to plus 2,300. Then Kyler Murray, Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield makes the cut there, 3,500. Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford. And then we get into our first of the running backs with Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and then Josh Allen, followed by Saquon Barkley.
Okay, so given those numbers, I can definitely tell you a couple of good and a couple of bad bets. Couple of really bad bets: Jackson, Prescott, no way, way too high. Should not be that high. Lamar Jackson is not going to repeat this last year, even if he does. If Mahomes doesn't get hurt, he doesn't even win last year's MVP. Yes, he's going to be good, but I believe we have seen the best year of Lamar Jackson's career.
Maybe
so. Getting him for that price, I don't want it. Dak Prescott is just ridiculous. This is Dallas Cowboys propaganda. Jerry Jones wrote this article, or had it written, I swear. Look at the sponsor of the article. It's going to say the Jones family. People need to get out of their heads that Dak Prescott is somehow an elite quarterback. He is not. Bubble top 10, never top 5. Above average. That's what Dak Prescott is as a quarterback. He's not the most valuable player on the team, never was, and probably won't be if the Cowboys are trying to be successful. I heard Matt Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo pretty late down the list, and I feel like those are decent value bets. If you're thinking that in the one sense, either the Lions as a team improve enough to the point where they're actually going to have double-digit wins, win a division, and Matthew Stafford will be the best player on that team. And in the other sense, with Garoppolo, you probably assume the 49ers are going to win their division, maybe be back on the same sort of trip, get the 1 seed, and then make a deep playoff push. Since they're such a strong team, the question is more or less then, will Garoppolo be able to have the numbers? That's the doubtful point here. The team result will be there, but if they're going to run for half of their yards, which if it works, they will, because that's how Kyle Shanahan works, then he probably won't have a very strong case for MVP, which is why I see him so low on the list, because he's not the one to run the offense. In the same vein, Tom Brady, I don't know, it's more name than anything else, because he's outside of New England now. He definitely has a fantastic offense around him, but they're going to have to really perform if he's going to be in that mix. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers off third? Like, you named him like 10th or something? He's so far down the list.
He is, yeah. He's behind Brady and Wentz and Watson. You know, if I was going to place bets, I would go for someone in that Baker Mayfield to Josh Allen range. Yeah, those are the guys that you're going to make a lot of money on, and it's very possible that one of those guys hit for sure. And
I'd probably go Stafford, Allen, Drew Lock. Those sound like good names.
Mm-hmm. You know who's not on this list? Ryan Tannehill.
Who is it?
Did not.
Yeah, I can see why. What were you saying, JJ?
One thing about a name that was brought up that I do want to quickly say is I want to make a bit of a bold prediction.
Okay.
I want to say that the Tom Brady Buccaneers are going to be the worst team in that division. I know everyone thinks it's going to be the Panthers. I'm going to say it's the Buccaneers.
I can't agree with that. It will be the Panthers. I do think it'll be the Panthers. I think the Buccaneers are overhyped. Don't get me wrong. I think they're gonna meet themselves into somewhere between 6-10 and 10-6, and they're not gonna compete for any like Super Bowls or something. But they'll be better, and the Panthers specifically will be a lot worse. I know you like your boy Teddy. I know you think he's all that and a bag of chips, right? And
he was undefeated last season, you know.
But their best player retired.
So was Brock Osweiler.
And they arguably still downgraded their quarterback. Yeah, exactly. They arguably still downgraded their quarterback. So, I can't see them lose. I can't see them actually having a better record than the Bucs. But it's going to be a tough division for sure. Actually, we should get your opinion on this because you weren't around when we did the NFC predictions.
I mean, I know what you both said about it because obviously I'm not sure if the viewers are aware of this, but I'm actually an avid viewer of the scoreboard when I'm not on it.
Right.
So, it is an interesting thing. I mean, listen, right? I haven't been watching football for that long, and the idea that the Falcons can be so much consistently better than the Saints that they would win the division over them, as Smokey said, I think seems to me like a bit of wishful thinking on his part. Then again, I am obviously not unbiased in this discussion either.
I feel like you might have a little bit of a not biased because of your fandom, but biased because of your experience.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying, right? Like, whenever I've seen the Falcons, they weren't really doing great.
Because you've only seen one season, but you haven't seen the 5 years before that whenever the Saints and Falcons were on even playing field and it was down to the wire. You just saw the 1 year where the Falcons were in the slot.
I mean, that is true. I mean, that's what I was saying though, right? I haven't been watching this long enough to get a completely objective feel on this, but I would obviously...
You didn't witness the Shanahan years in Atlanta whenever Julio put like 300 yards on people in one game.
Yeah, I would go with the...
And I started him in that game, and I remember that.
I would go with the Saints winning it, and then I guess Falcons second, and as I said, Panthers 3, Buccaneers 4.
What's your record for Tampa Bay?
Oh,
go like under 6 wins or something with that sort of receivers, right?
I mean, you would think that, yeah, and I guess it's where the bold part of the bold prediction comes in, where it's like you kind of have to either have Tampa really low or Carolina very high.
All of them really high. In that
so yeah, I mean, to be fair, it is definitely one of the stronger divisions.
Yeah. That's true.
So there is going to be a lot of wins going into that division.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. I just wanted to put that out there, and this is once again one of those situations where, like, you know, if it doesn't turn out that way, it's just A, I said it was a bold prediction, B, it's me, so you never know what to take of it. But god damn it, if it hits. It's like that one time, remember when I predicted the World Series?
The World Series called Nats in 7 and it happened.
I was about to say, like, and not only did I get the winner right, I also got the
against the odds, by the way.
Yeah.
So
that's where I could have made a lot of money if I actually believed what I was saying. So
exactly. Smokey, by the way, I was gonna offer you a bet on this one specifically because I know you love talking about Deshaun Watson so much and you believe in him so much. I'm willing to bet you Deshaun Watson against Patrick Mahomes for the MVP. And actually, I will take a handicap. I will give you 2-1 odds. If you want to take that.
If
If neither one wins, the bet falls flat. Nothing happens. You can name whatever you want to bet for. At 2-1 odds, I will take Mahomes. I believe that strongly in him. I believe he's.
Well, he probably has like a 4-1 likely odds to win the MVP over Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is currently, was he 5th? Yeah, 5th. So, and of course Patrick Mahomes is number 1. That's tough. Let me
just
think
clip
about
that out of context and just use that in the future.
Yeah, I mean I already have one of those clips.
Oh,
I did.
Just Smokey saying Patrick Mahomes is obviously number 1.
All right, what are you saying?
Well, I was gonna say, did you know that Houston has a really great quarterback? And I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but no, I was gonna make you a bet though.
Wait, who were you about to say for the good Houston quarterback? Just I'm curious.
He's gonna go back to David Carr.
Yeah, David Carr. Matt Schaub.
I remember him, dude.
Brock
Osweiler, what a
have you heard of
legacy.
him? Hey, Brian Hoyer, he was great.
Dude, that was a history.
I was gonna make you this bet though, because I've heard you say this multiple times. You were predicting that we are gonna have a repeat in the Super Bowl this season.
Okay, yeah.
What do you want to put on that?
What is the odds I'm getting? Because it's obviously an unlikely bet.
2-1.
2-1?
Yeah.
That's very low. I mean, I'm probably gonna need a 4-1 here, because it's 2 teams out of 32, and I need to hit both of them, right?
I'd go like 3-1.
I'd go 3-1 on either team separately. I'd do that. I think I'd do that. 3-1. The exact matchup is tough.
4-1. Let's go 4-1 then.
Okay, 4-1. 1 can versus 4 cans of Monster. Okay, that's a deal. So just to clarify the bet, if Super Bowl 2021 is Chiefs Niners, I get 4 cans. If it's not Chiefs Niners, exactly that, you get 1 can. That's a deal.
Yes. All right.
That's fine. I'll take that. Do you want to do the MVP bet though with Mahomes and Watson?
Yeah. If neither get it,
I'll up it. I'll up it to 1 and 3, and if neither get it, nothing happens.
All right. Let's do it.
Actually, someone needs to write these down.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, JJ, do that, and then send them to me because I need to enter them in the intended document because there is a lot of them. So those are bets. They're in. That's the MVP discussion. Let's go to some of the other ones. How about Offensive Player of the Year? Smoker.
Oh man. You know what? I think you'll like this pick, but you're not gonna agree with it because I don't know. When I picked last year I picked a lot of chalky players, and about half of them worked out, half of them didn't. But I wanted to go with some dark horses this year. So, Offensive Player of the Year. Now, if the 49ers return to prominence and do what you are predicting they will, I'm suggesting that they're going to do it on the back of Raheem Mostert. And that would be my pick for Offensive Player of the Year. Now, I know Shanahan loves the committee backfield, and this is a long shot. But if they go deep into the playoffs, Raheem Mostert is going to be the Cinderella story for Offensive Player of the Year. So I'm going to go with him.
JJ, what do you think?
Oh God, the further down this list we go, the less idea of an idea I have. Offensive Player of the Year, to my understanding, is basically usually just like whomever would have gotten the MVP if it wasn't all quarterbacks, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
So, I mean, obviously, only limited to offensive players. It's in the name. So we're looking at, I guess, primarily running backs and wide receivers, maybe some tight ends here and there. I mean, there's obviously a decent chance if you go for some of the Tampa Bay receivers, but again, I'm not sure how much I believe in that. I believe I have made that kind of clear. There's so many though, like
yes.
I mean, if I just think about like some of those numbers we saw last season, which I mostly saw because of fantasy, of course, but like all of those like yards that.
Another hint I can give you is that the offensive player of the year is typically never on the same team as the MVP, even if he should. So if it's Mahomes as the MVP, Tyreek Hill will not be the offensive player of the year, even if he should be.
Wouldn't have necessarily been my first thought, but yeah, I guess that would also be a good pick, theoretically, if that wasn't a thing. I mean, there's so many like wide receivers and running backs that like do well. I mean, if last season's stats are anything to go off of, McCaffrey would probably be like a decent pick. You know, let's just go with that.
I like the McCaffrey pick too, because arguably the offense will rely at least as much on him as they did last year. He has a true pocket passing quarterback with him, with more experience than Kyle Allen and Will Grier had last year, and no Cam Newton that'll steal half his rush yards. So I feel like McCaffrey's in a very good position to be sort of the old heads will be shocked at this comparison, but Barry Sanders of the Carolina Panthers this year, because he's going to be probably responsible for like 50% of all their yards, and they're still going to win like six games at the maximum. I feel like that's sort of the role that he's filling there. The Mostert one is tough. I think it's really hard to pick one of those awards on a Shanahan team because you basically gave yourself the reason why it's probably unlikely. Because while he might be the featured back in most cases, and he has those breakout games, whenever there's 35 carries a game, he'll have 15 of them at max, and that's the case every time. So these running backs like McCaffrey, who will literally take every snap, are just inherently favored over those players. I do have one 49ers player as an idea written down, but I think if it's going to be anyone, it has to be George Kittle, because he's the only guy who contributes to the run game and the pass game more than anyone else in the combined fashion. He's also the one guy that actually has the individual talent on that offense to break records, which we have seen him do. He's best tight end in the NFL. He has the single season record, best blocking tight end in the NFL. So he's probably the one that can have that type of a breakout year for a tight end to actually be the offensive player of the year. I think Christian McCaffrey is probably the sensible pick, and maybe the pick that I would make. But one name that I just want to bring up, and Smokey, I listen, this might be halfway wishful thinking. In fact, it's probably mostly wishful thinking, but how about Quentin Nelson?
Quentin Nelson, wow. You usually don't see a guy that's not in a skill position take it, but...
Yeah, why not? Maybe he should.
I mean, that's one of the greatest lines in the business, so... And why not the leader of that line if they're going to go that route, which I find it hard to believe that the committee would go that route, but hey, if they were going to, yeah, why not Quentin Nelson?
I would not mind it, because I know that this is an extremely long shot to see an offensive lineman get any sort of award that's not best offensive lineman.
Exactly.
I feel like you have some of these guys that are actually on the level. Like, remember, like about 3-4 years ago, Tyron Smith was in that conversation when the Cowboys had this incredible line. And they're running all over people. Like, the standout guy sometimes is in that conversation. Now, he's probably not winning it if a receiver or a running back has a standout year. But a name that maybe I wanted to bring up and maybe should just be talked about. To me, if I had to bet right now, Christian McCaffrey would probably be the pick. Typically not a quarterback. And since an MVP will be the quarterback, likely it'll be a running back. I can't really see people like Le'Veon Bell because he doesn't seem to be fit in that offense as much. Whenever he was with the Steelers, he was in that conversation every year. But right now, I can't see him bring that same production. McCaffrey seems to be up there. Kamara is another guy that you could bring up in there with the Saints, of course, because he's a very skilled receiving back also. Those are usually tough to gauge. It'll depend a lot on breakouts, breakout seasons. Someone like Julio is always in the race. Michael Thomas. It's usually a matter of contrast, right? How far did that player stand out of the team that they are on? I feel like with MVPs, the team success matters more, and with those players of the year, it matters more how much better they are in comparison to the rest of the team. Which is why I think McCaffrey has a good advantage in this one, maybe over guys like Kamara or Thomas, because the Saints will have many good offensive players, but the Panthers probably won't.
But Thomas
That's what I would go here. He did win last season, and I think he probably had about the best season that a receiver could have.
Yeah. It was great. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's definitely possible. And you could have argued that McCaffrey was in that race and maybe should have won.
Yeah, well, that's
those are the names.
That's why I tend to not go with players that are going to be on a losing team. Because, and I mean, although Michael Thomas was excellent last year, Christian McCaffrey probably should have won that award last season. But I agree with that, yes. They tend to look that if you're that great of a player to be the player of the year, why are you not winning? Yeah, simple question. But
yeah, because he's not the quarterback. That's your answer.
Well, the running back.
It's not the running back's job to win that game.
The second most for the team. I mean, we've seen running backs carry teams.
I don't know about that. It's tough, but like not nowhere near the same extent as a quarterback. I think.
No,
running backs are more like they can make the play that shifts the game. But if the team sucks and the other team's better, it doesn't matter if he has that explosive 9-yard touchdown. That a running back is the one to shift the close game in one's favor. The quarterback's the one to win 16.
I agree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate on what the committee may be thinking.
It's really tough to predict what the committee thinks because sometimes they're thinking a lot of good stuff. We've seen that before, for sure. Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. And I will just say this: I find this about the toughest one to predict, but maybe you guys have an idea here.
Well, it is the toughest one to predict, I think. And you can look at the old heads, and maybe Aaron Donald's going to come back. And, Khalil Mack's always a favorite. Nick Bosa being the Rookie of the Year last year, that maybe he could take it this season. You got your J.J. Watts and your T.J. Watts. And maybe Stephon Gilmore will repeat. I doubt it. Von Miller's getting up there in age. I'm going with my dark horse pick, Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I'm going with my predictions for this season, and with that team coming back to prominence, I think the team's going to do really well, and that is a really good defense when they're firing on all cylinders, and I think the head of that defense should be Minkah Fitzpatrick this season.
That's a good point. JJ, you got some of that?
Well, when you said Defensive Player of the Year, and I mean, I knew this was coming up, I was like, oh god, I don't know, but I want to pick up on one of the names that Smokey mentioned, and Nick Bosa is definitely a candidate. I mean, we said the whole thing about the likelihood of the Niners going back to the Super Bowl, so we're looking at another potential dominant run, and we're looking at a key player there, and I think that's like the best pick I'm gonna make today, like in that category. So I'm not going to come up with anything better, so I'm just going to go with that.
I like the pick because he's in a very, very strong pass rushing system, so it should benefit him a lot. This is not going to be the same. Smokey, you probably remember this, the Smith and Smith situation where when Justin Smith leaves, Alvin Smith all of a sudden, like, his production drops by half, and then he starts making bomb threats at airports and gets fired from the team. JJ's looking like, well, yeah, that happened. This is not going to happen here, right? But DeForest Buckner's out, Javon Kinlaw's in, same caliber player. The defensive line will still be probably the best in the league. The pass rush will still be dominant, which is why it is virtually guaranteed that the team will be very good, and that's why I like the pick, because it's a solid one. But for Defensive Player of the Year, why is this so tough? Because you just rattled down 10 pass rushers, right? And every single one of them can realistically get it. It's not like with the MVP, right? Name the top 10 pass rushers in the league. They can all be defensive MVP. Their odds are pretty much the same. Von Miller, Khalil Mack, Nick Bosa, Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, and Desmond. And they're seemingly more every year. So, and that's only defensive line, by the way, because pass rushing obviously is such an important part. But you have Von Miller, you have Bradley Chubb, maybe in his third year.
Can't leave out Joey Bosa either.
Yeah, Joey Bosa, exactly. Both Bosas, I mean, they're carbon copies of each other. I feel like Nick is in the more productive system, and he's a bit more athletic and a bit faster. But yeah, Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, for that matter, with the Chargers there.
Yeah.
So it's really, really tough to predict this, because there's so many people that they could possibly go to, probably more than anyone else. Because Shaq Barrett, man, there's so many good pass rushers, and then every once in a while you have a quarterback with an outstanding season. You got Stephon Gilmore, you got Marshawn Lattimore, and some other names that
Darius
are
Slay.
still very much in the Darius Slay, Richard Sherman, if you will, or a couple of years we had some Denver guys in that conversation. It's always possible. That every level of the defense can pick it up. You look at linebackers, you have Darius Leonard.
Yeah.
The younger guys that you
Jones.
never really know what you're going to get. Yeah, exactly. Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner. So many people who could just stand out, have a good season, play all 60 games. The defense is good. And they make plays. And they get a lot of picks, get a lot of sacks. This is why it's so tough. I wouldn't bet on this. I would never bet on Defensive Player of the Year, because it's so hard to do. You could argue Aaron Donald might be the most talented player, but he will be on one of the worst teams, we would assume. So Clowney maybe or Bosa might have the advantage on him on that. Then again, you could pick 4 different defensive linemen from the NFC West, probably 6 if you want to. So this is such a wide open one that I have really hard time actually predicting it. I wrote down as my 3. I wrote down Von Miller, Nick Bosa, Aaron Donald. Because I feel like there'll be inconsistent defenses, and Aaron Donald, especially as an interior pass rusher, and he's arguably the best interior pass rusher in the league. It's been for a long time, actually. He is stands out a little bit in that he's just not this pure edge guy, and he does more run defense and just makes all these plays and these two gapping that just stand out to a lot of experts more. But those are my 3 guys, and I'm not confident that I'm right with any of them, because it could be anything. It's like flipping a 20-sided coin. I don't even want to think about it. Let's move on, or I guess rolling a dice in that sense. Let's move on to the rookies, though. Offensive Defensive Rookie of the Year. Let's start with the offensive side. And Smokey, I'm curious to hear what you think about the rookies.
Well, the traditional pick would be to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? I mean, that, I would imagine that's the chalk pick right now. I haven't really looked into those odds.
Maybe.
But,
Maybe.
You know what? It's for me, it came down to a most likely and a dark horse. And the only reason the dark horse would be a dark horse is because it tends to take half a season for these guys to get going, and that being rookie quarterbacks and Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I think it is entirely possible for Tua to do as well, if not better, than Kyler Murray last season, because he is actually a better player overall than Kyler Murray.
Yes, obviously.
But other than that, DeAndre Swift, I mean, how can you overlook, a great running back, a great rookie running back to win this award? And it happens more often than not. So, really, I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift over Tua. And it's really a tough pick for me, but I'll go with Swift.
Do you have anything to add to this about the rookie class?
I didn't watch enough college football, and even if I did, I don't know if there's so many teams.
Not a draft
players.
head as much as just watch the program.
And yeah, I was about to say, I mean, I mostly know like some of the guys by reputation because of the hype coming up into the draft and during the draft, but
That's right.
I wasn't that actively keeping up with anything.
So here's what I wrote down on my list, and this is literally what I wrote. I wrote any receiver. I believe it'll be a receiver. That's the only thing I'm going to say. You talked about just running backs, quarterbacks. You didn't even bring receivers up. This was the best receiver class that I've ever witnessed. And even looking into the past, I have a tough time finding one that was actually better at this, especially at Deep it was. There was 9 people with first-round talent in receivers in this class, which is simply unheard of. And a lot of them fell to the second round, so you can come up with any one here. Jerry Jeudy fits perfectly in that system. I'm predicting the Broncos to have a breakout here. Bullock's going to be good. And Jerry Jeudy is the perfect target in that system. You have Henry Ruggs with the Raiders, CeeDee Lamb. You have Brandon Ayuk. You have Denzel Mims. There's an abundance of these receivers. Like, look at Ayuk, right? Deebo Samuel just broke his foot. Emmanuel Sanders is out the building. And Ayuk comes into the NFL as a much better player than N'Keal Harry did last year, as a very, very similar player to fill that Deebo Samuel role, who we don't know if he'll be able to start week 1 at the moment. He's projected to be out about 17 weeks. So, well, not quite 17 weeks, but 10 to 12 weeks. So it's going to be a while. He's going to miss training camp, might have a slow start, and Ayuk has a good chance of being a starter day 1. And with all these receivers that are going to be starting right away, and that have made big plays in college, that are obviously a lot of times also went to teams that really needed those receivers because they were picked pretty high. I feel like receivers have a better shot now than they've had in a lot of years past to actually get someone to be Rookie of the Year. Generally, you always go with running backs because they seem like the more solid pick. Because typically with the running back, you know if they will start or not. Right? Someone like a Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette gets drafted, they'll start. And week 1, because running backs have like no transition period from college to the NFL, they're going to be the best player on that offense. You just know.
Yeah, exactly.
With the receiver, it's a little bit different, because with the receiver, you need to build chemistry with the quarterback, and they have a lot more of a route tree to learn, and a lot more playbook study to do.
And they tend to hit in their second season.
Right, and then you have tight ends who tend to hit even a year later because the tight end is the toughest position to transition to from college to the NFL, on the same level with quarterback basically. So rookie tight ends are always, like, historically, this as a fantasy football player, the one thing you stay away from is rookie tight ends. Always has been, always will be. And
you really want to avoid rookie wide receivers through the first half of the season at least.
Okay.
And then you're only going to get a couple breakouts.
I can see why, because you never really know. You don't often have a Julio where you just know. It doesn't happen much.
Yes.
But this year of receivers was so stacked with so much talent, and almost every receiver was drafted below his grade, by the way. Like, almost every single one.
Yeah. The reason is because there were so many good ones, so you didn't. Yeah. It wasn't as urgent to pick out the standouts because there's so many, so you can just you can afford to wait.
Exactly, because New Orleans, San Francisco, those teams would pick receivers very early on if it weren't for 10 players of the same caliber being available at the end of the round or in the second round. So I think receivers have a good chance this time. Of course, running backs are a good pick. I don't really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire for that pick. Is he really the odds-on favorite? Is he like the Vegas pick? I feel like it seems like a mistake.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
I feel like it seems like a mistake.
I would assume so. I mean, being on the offense that he's on and being the first running back off the board, everything seems to lead toward his favor there.
I mean, Tua has the highest ceiling, and we'll go to quarterbacks. Tua has the highest ceiling of any player in the draft. So if he starts early, doesn't get hurt, the Dolphins are serviceable. He's obviously a good pick. Joe Burrow could be an instant classic when he comes in, but that's tough to gauge, like we said with quarterbacks. Don't pick a quarterback if it's not like an Andrew Luck and you have a good running back to pick. To me, though, it will be a receiver this year, and I feel like I actually have a pretty good shot.
He is actually tied with Tua as the number 1 chalk pick right now. They're both sitting at 750. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, wow, and they are followed by Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift.
So they really like their running backs, huh? Okay, fair enough. I'll go receivers. I'll take a shot at a receiver, and I see why Tua is definitely a flashy pick. If he hits, he's gonna hit.
Yeah.
Unimaginably big. That is correct. Let's go to the defensive side to close up the player section and defensive rookie of the year. Smokey, what do you think? Are you thinking the same thing that everyone's thinking?
Yeah, I'm sure I am, because how can you not pick the number one player, the best player in the draft? Chase Young. I mean, what else is there?
Best defensive player in the draft.
I think overall,
yeah, you know what? Tua's still the best player overall in the draft.
It's apples to oranges, of course, but
yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Higher value, higher ceiling, I think, but yeah, Chase Young is the easy pick here. I do have a name written down, a second name, just in case, and you're gonna like it. I have AJ Terrell. You weren't happy with the pick. I like the pick a lot more than you did. I think he fits the Falcons really, really well. He's the exact kind of cover corner that they actually want in that system. And scheme fit is important. We've seen this before. And sometimes people expect draft busts, and they actually show up big time.
Don't get me wrong. I hope it works out.
Yeah,
I hope he's better than
He'll have
Desmond
a chance to prove himself. Yeah, he'll have a chance to prove himself too, because he'll be facing Michael Thomas, and he'll be facing Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be a tough year, but he'll have a shot. And I think he's a dark horse candidate there. You could of course call on other defensive linemen again. That all possible. But yeah, Chase Young should be the one that everyone should be picking here. He'll be the high favorite, so I wouldn't even bet on this category at all, because you barely win anything if you go Chase Young, and you barely have a chance to win if you don't go Chase Young, so just stay away from that one.
He's the Joey Bosa of last season.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the Nick Bosa. Sorry.
Easy mistake to make. They're all from Ohio State. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Except that maybe that you could argue Chase Young is going to a little bit less of a developed team.
Yeah, you could definitely argue
but
that.
But then again, they are extraordinarily tough to compare because they're so different, right? Chase Young is the athletic speed rusher. Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa, both of them are the refined, the refined pass rushers with all the technique. But yeah, I agree. He's definitely the odds-on favorite, and he should be. Let's move to coaches. We have one more category, Coach of the Year. You can also talk on this again, JJ, but Smokey, let's start with you. Who do you have written down? And I think we'll agree on a couple names here.
Yeah, of course, the chalk pick is John Harbaugh to repeat. But if I see the 49ers doing as you predict also, and returning to their state of last season, how can you overlook Kyle Shanahan, one of the greatest offensive minds in the business? I would go with Kyle Shanahan here.
Okay. JJ.
I had a similar thought process where I was saying if we have two teams that we kind of low-key have already, not necessarily locked for the Super Bowl, but definitely as like high candidates, and there's maybe two or three other teams that we definitely have as like deep playoff contenders, you would assume that their coaches thereby have the best odds of getting in there. So, Shanahan's definitely one of the sensible picks. You could go with any of those teams that we expect to make a deep playoff run, and I guess those would all be reasonable to a degree.
I like to always gauge this as like similar to the offensive player, where I check how valuable is the coach in relation to the team, and how much of a contribution does the coach have to the team. And in that case, for example, you compare Andy Reid to Kyle Shanahan, and Kyle Shanahan is clearly the much more valuable head coach because of the scheme reliance and his phenomenal play calling, whereas the Chiefs, Andy Reid is basically just the guy on the sideline who lets Patrick Mahomes go to work. Like he doesn't put he doesn't hinder Patrick Mahomes actively like people always did with Aaron Rodgers, right? That's the best quality about Andy Reid. He understands what he has. He has the best player that football's ever seen, and he's just letting him go.
But it seems like one of those things that not a lot of coaches would do, right? Just allowing their players to like do their thing, like be a bit more hands off. And Andy Reid is also known for definitely thinking of some more creative plays here and there.
Just explode, exactly. That's exact offensive system that he should be in. I agree with that. You look at someone like Mike McCarthy, who just has literally done more damage to Green Bay than Aaron Rodgers could make up for during their time. So with that being gauged, I think Kyle Shanahan is the probably the most valuable coach to their team at the moment, aside from obviously Bill Belichick, but he's almost outside of any debate and consideration. I feel like I have two other names written down, and one of them is one that I believe in, and the other one is one that I don't believe in, but a lot of people do. So I'll start with the latter, and it's Bruce Arians. People like Tampa Bay. People think they're gonna be all this, and then gonna put up all these stats, and they're gonna run and throw all over people, and you can't double cover 3 guys. I get it. And if they win 12 games and they go all crazy, they lead the league in offensive yards. A lot of credit will go to Bruce Arians, no doubt, because he assembled this offense and he's calling the plays for this offense.
Well, he's
and
a great
especially
offensive
if they have
mind overall.
He is, and especially, I don't know if you noticed this, but Coach of the Year usually is a team that's not established. It's a team that went from bad to good, like that pop-out team. When Doug Peterson, the Eagles were pulled out last year. The 49ers go from nothing, and then they go to the Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan. It's going to be a team that's typically in its first very good year. And this is why I like this third pick actually a lot. And I think you like it too. You got Sean McDermott. Because you like the Bills. You like the Bills, right?
Yes.
To win like 12 games.
Yes.
If the Bills win 12 games, I don't see why Sean McDermott would not be that guy, because he has then, as head coach, turned this organization around from
long way from
not
Rex
making
Ryan.
the playoffs all the way for Rex Ryan. And you can't get much deeper than that. So to take a team from that to making the playoffs, winning a division, that's usually what gets awarded with Coach of the Year. Not just whose team has been the best that year, but whose team has improved the most that year. Which is why I think it's going to be a little harder for people like John Harbaugh, like Andy Reid, like Kyle Shanahan, and especially like Bill Belichick, to win the award, right? If we're just awarding best coach, Bill Belichick would get it almost every year, but he's not winning it because he hasn't done anything extraordinary this year, right? The Patriots have always been that. He's not turning them around. So typically the coach of the year is the guy who just turned his team around and brought them from the basement up to the top, which is why I think Sean McDermott should be the secret pick there, and Bruce Arians is also in that category if the Buccaneers really work out that well. I know a lot of people like Cliff Kingsbury to make it, but
that's a chalky pick.
Yeah, a lot of people love the Cardinals. A lot of people are high on the Cardinals, 10 wins and whatnot. We will see. Let's see if Kyler Murray really gets better from last year. I personally am not a huge believer, but to each their own. Those are definitely two of my secret picks. I think Shanahan, of course, should also be in the conversation because I feel like a lot of the Niners' success is always attributed to him, disproportionately much, as opposed to a lot of other coaches, because it's so known that his scheming is usually what makes teams succeed. It was the same thing when he was with the Falcons too. He would get more credit than the head coach, and you know this whenever he was there calling the plays. So those are the 3 guys that I have written down. But JJ, did you speak on this?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you spoke on this. Okay.
But you bring up an interesting point there. You don't often necessarily hear people talk about, oh yeah, the team is doing really well because of their coach. There's like one or two that you hear that about, but for most coaches, I think they're just happy if you don't hear their name, right? Because you oftentimes hear that like, oh yeah, like this coach is ruining that team, this coach is ruining that team. It's like,
I feel like coaches were talked about more in the negative than the
That's what I was saying, right?
That's true.
As a coach, almost most coaches will probably be very happy if their names don't get brought up a lot.
They're like offensive linemen, right? Like if they don't mention you all game, you've done your job, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's often true. When teams are winning, the articles will all be written about players and standout performers of that day. But when a team is losing a full season, then it's like, this coach, he's been there the whole time. He's the common denominator. He might be the guy who needs to go. So that's actually a pretty good point. I agree with that. Yeah, that's a good point. So that's the 5 awards that we've been talking about. Let us know
6.
your 6. Right, yeah, the players and then the coach.
We're not doing comeback?
We can do comeback player of the year. Sure, let's throw some out. It's always tough to get it, but let's hear some. What do you think?
You got probably the chalky pick, and I haven't looked this up, but I'm guessing would be AJ Green. And I don't know that I agree with that because that depends on Joe Burrow and him actually being what he was last season at LSU, and I don't think he adapts that quickly, and I don't think he's quite the quarterback that everyone is making him out to be. You also have David Johnson, who could return. You have two guys in that category, David Johnson and Todd Gurley. Can these guys return to being what they once were? But I think I would go with Ben Roethlisberger to bring that team back to prominence and win that award.
I like your optimism with just picking one of the players that probably should get it. I know, JJ knows, everyone watching this knows that if there's any way to do it, like if there's any way to justify it at all, of course they're going to give it to Gronk, right? Obviously.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Even if he shouldn't win it.
Yeah.
So I feel like you just have to count him as the favorite because they're gonna try everything that they possibly can to give him this award.
But think about this.
You
were talking about Bruce Arians' offense earlier. Bruce Arians has never had a dominant tight end. He just doesn't use them. I mean, he's got one of the best athletes at tight end in the NFL with O.J. Howard, and he did not use him at all last season.
That is definitely true, but it's gonna be a lot of Tom Brady running this offense too. He's gonna make a lot of adjustments and calls and judgments on the field, and we know how much better Tom Brady is when he has Gronk to rely on and just chuck it up, and he will catch it. So I feel like just because of that connection, Gronk will get his share of involvement in that offense.
That's true.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So he should just be considered the favorite, and there's nothing we can really do about it. I like the Roethlisberger pick though. I think if he starts the full season, and the Steelers perform the way you expect them to, it's a good pick. I can't really argue with that.
I mean, here's the thing, right? As I said, I don't necessarily expect the Bucs to do as well as people think, and yet I would not be surprised if Gronk was the comeback player because he came back. It was this year, and everyone knows his name.
That's exactly what it's going to be. There's people saying Antonio Brown.
What? He people are still.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I guess ultimately he'd be on one team for the season, not on like every.
Yeah. That's two things to stress there: on one team and for the season, not three teams for the preseason and then nothing, as he did last.
I mean, he did start a game last season.
It started games. Is gonna be, by the way, one of those trivia questions in like 20 years. Name the two NFL teams that Antonio Brown caught touchdown passes for. Name the one outside of the Steelers. That's gonna be it, right? But yeah, I'm not really seeing it. Stay realistic. Gronk seems to be the candidate for everyone. I like the Roethlisberger pick. David Johnson, I'm not so sure about. But we'll see. I feel like there wasn't as many injuries or notable injuries last year as there were the years before. So that's maybe good.
I mean, for like half the season, like every single quarterback was hurt, but not for like not like season-ending usually.
Yeah, but like just a little bit.
I mean, you just said notable injuries, and I was like, there was like a week or two where there was like no quarterbacks. But nothing season-ending.
Nothing that would make someone a candidate for comeback.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like most of them came back before the end of the season.
And like the 2-3 years before that, it was like hell. Like everyone got hurt. I remember the last 2 years we always talked about. Whenever we talked about comeback player, there was like a list of 20-30 names that we could rattle down because they all had gotten hurt. So I guess it's.
I think next year there's gonna be a bit more of a list to talk about.
Think so?
I don't know. I mean, it depends a little bit on some timetables, but I do know that, of course, we currently have an extra special risk that could take players out for a while, and I don't know if that's still gonna be relevant necessarily as much towards the end of the season. But imagine someone gets to like not play for a couple months because of that shit.
Yeah.
If they're really affected,
they might not even have.
Then maybe.
I mean, I feel like they might actually curb their overreactions when it comes to the NFL because those players are gonna make big money. Like Ezekiel Elliott recently, of course, is famous for having caught the virus. I feel like if that happened during the season, they would like, okay, sit out your 2 weeks, get healthy, but you're worth too much money. We can't pull this off. Like with a regular person, of course, lock them up forever, right? If they get it, that's how we react at the moment. But I feel like if that much money is on the line, just treat it like a regular sickness. You had Sam Darnold last year, okay? He'll get healthy, and then you got to come back and play as soon as you're no longer infectious. We'll see how that goes. Maybe it's really tough to judge it. I think. So that's the calls on the awards. Let us know what you think about that, and maybe next year we'll be talking about a bigger list of comeback players. But we'll have to see. At least the injuries seem to be gone down a little bit. Over the last year, which is definitely a good thing. But let us know your opinions in the comments of this video, and drop a like on it if you did enjoy it. Who's your MVP? All the awards, coach, just give us all 6 names, or in case of defensive player of the year, 60 names, as seems only right to do. But Smokey, if you don't have anything to add, or JJ?
Oh, no.
That's it.
That's it. Great. Thank you for watching, and we're gonna see you in the next one.
Deuces.